Welcome to Build the Business, where we talk about life, lessons learned, and what it's like scaling a multi-million-dollar business, and how it's not always how it seems. So I thought for today's episode, we might talk about some of the things that we went through in 2025 and just kind of your takeaways of what transpired in Western and, just reviewing the year back, what comes to mind for you.
Yeah, as I sit in view of 25 really was the outcome of previous years. And I know that maybe sounds simple, but there were some very notable things that happened in 2025 as a result of 24 and decisions made in 2023. And really, as I look back, all the way back to, was it 2020 when our building collapsed?
Yes.
March of 2020?
Yeah,
I think
or
that's
21,
right.
one or the other.
Maybe 21. I'll have to think about that a little bit. It might have been 2021. So March of 2021, I think it was. And,
that was a epic time.
Yeah, it was just, it was a real reset in our company. And it really, like looking back now, I can see how it shaped where we are today. It shaped what we have today. It shaped a lot of the outcomes that we're experiencing today. Maybe someday we tell that story in more detail, but for today, in your question about what are the takeaways from 2025, and I think it's this, like showing up every time, all the time, when you don't want to, when it's not easy, when it's not comfortable, when it's hard, and all of these adjectives I can just continue to put around it, like continuing to show up in those times. And sometimes it's week by week, sometimes it's day by day, and sometimes it's hour by hour, and sometimes it's just like, okay, how about the next minute?
Yeah.
And that's the view that people don't often see from the outside, like how it seems. And the distance to the edge is just closer than what people think. It's closer than it seems. The difference between success and failure sometimes is just simply refusing to stop going. Until there's no way to keep going. When you're not running, you're jogging. When you're not jogging, you're walking. When you're not walking, you're crawling. When you're not crawling, you're on your belly, army crawling, trying to move forward. Like, can I go another foot? Can I do another minute? Can I make another hour? Sometimes it's just remembering, like, in the stress of all of it, all of these things are going wrong. Feels like everything is going south. Every plan you made is falling apart. They can't take my birthday. Like, what's going to happen? Like, I'm going to go home tonight, and maybe that home is a tent at the campground, or maybe it's where I've been living for 15 years. I don't know. Like, it could change. And being very open-handed with that, I feel like there are people who look in and maybe think that we're not open-handed or we are open-handed. Either way, it really doesn't matter what people's perspective is, because, you as owners of Western, we're the ones actually walking through it. We're the ones who actually know at a core level. And yeah, I want all the input and advice and perspective I can get from people that I trust. And ultimately, no one knows me better than me and God. And so people's perspective is valuable, but it's not always the end all.
Yeah.
And I think that's one lesson that continues to be hammered home for me. I mean, in past years, especially in 25, being so sure about my direction that I'm willing to not allow other people's criticism or advice or opinion to sway the way that I go, because I feel like I've been down this road enough times. I've ran enough iterations of this exercise that when I chart a course, and it's important to note that, charting these courses is grounded in the direction I believe God wants me to go. And so if I'm convinced that this is the direction God is asking me to go, and other people have all of these opinions, these perspectives, these criticisms maybe, hey, I want to consider that as long as they're a person I trust. But ultimately, I've been down the road of saying, oh, you know what? I should do that because they're older, they're richer, they're smarter, they're wiser, they've done this. It's not always true. And so I want to use that as a meter, as a check. But when I've done that in the past and I've strayed from what I feel led to do in a decision or a process or a direction, and I do what somebody else thinks I should do, like 11 times out of 10,
Never works.
Never works.
Yep.
Never works. And so I continue to be impressed with the fact that not that I am all-knowing, not that I have all the answers, not that I have it figured out, but when I deviate from what God has charted me a course of,
Yep.
it doesn't work.
Yep.
And it may sound and look insane to everyone around us, me, but it's absolutely the right course.
Yeah.
And so,
And that course can change overnight.
yeah.
So just because it's one direction today doesn't mean it's the same direction tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what people have to understand. Like when I have to understand this, and I'm a people, right? And so when I look into other people's businesses or lives and it doesn't make sense to me, ultimately I have to say, boy, it looks insane. I wouldn't do it that way, or that didn't work for me.
Yeah.
And there's value in that. But it's not charting, it's not the end all for their direction. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't chart their course.
Yeah.
So I'm not delegitimizing the value of input whatsoever, but I am saying make sure you qualify the input. What I'm saying is like vet the person. Make sure the person is worthy to be in that circle with you. And then 2, understand that ultimately the choices you make become your responsibility. And so if you're going to go a direction that somebody thinks you should, you now hold responsibility over the results of that direction. And if it doesn't work and you knew you shouldn't have gone that way and you knew you were being called this way, like that's on you too.
Yeah.
And so being strong enough to carry that day after day, week after week, and while things continue to crumble and feel like failure and fall apart and outcomes not come about how you wanted, you're truly committed to the direction that you truly feel called to, then it really doesn't matter. And maybe the end result that God is leading you toward is the crumbling or the failure of the thing. It could be. And so that's where I think charting course, like today we're going north and tomorrow we're going south, and people are like, you're wishy-washy. No, I'm simply doing exactly what I feel like God is telling me to do.
Yep.
And you can't use that as this excuse of like, well, God told me to do it, therefore I'm the ultimate victim.
Yeah.
It's not that. It's ownership in it. And it's this idea that I'm truly spending the time with Him to figure out, is this what He's really telling me? That I'm connected with Him, that I'm diving in, that I'm pouring into the relationship to know that this is what He's telling me. Mm-hmm. And then I'm being clear on whose voice am I listening to. And God can speak through other people too, and what they say to me, and I've definitely experienced that as well. And so the result of 25 has been a solidifying of my resolve, of my direction, regardless of the outcomes. And then it's also been just continuing to be open-handed and release all of those outcomes and just continue to trust. And that was my word for 25, was trust, and just continue to just let go of what the outcome is I think it should be, and step into the outcome that is, and continue to show up at the highest level for myself, my company, every day.
Yeah. Yeah, I look back at 25 and past years, and I think one thing that has moved forward in my life is failure. You know, what is failure really? And it's really just the meaning that we put on it. And so just because an outcome doesn't come out the way you think it is that truly failure, or is that a step towards where you need to be? And just remembering, I've been thinking about this a lot the last few weeks, is just our time here on earth is so short, and what really matters is eternity. And so, maybe things in this life don't turn out the way we want, the success we want, or whatever it may be. Might not have the freedom financially, or just whatever aspect you want to put at it, but life is so short, and keeping my eye on eternity and what that is going to be, because that's a whole lot longer and much bigger consequences. Failure is just the meaning that we put on things, and so we can shift the meaning of an outcome based on the weight that we put behind it. And so failure looks like a lot different these days to me than they have growing up or just years past recently. And it's even holding that loosely, just holding the outcomes loosely and showing up every day with resolve, with determination. What's going to happen that day, you're just going to keep going. And so, 25's been a difficult year in a lot of senses. We've taken a lot of L's, and we've taken a lot of W's too. And so, but we have to actively seek out what those wins are. And, that's something we do with our people every single day. Well, 3 times a week, is helping them see the W's, because as humans, it's so easy to just naturally find the L's.
One of the shifts in 25 for me too was understanding that historically I defined my success based on, or I defined myself based on the losses. And learning how to shift the definition of myself on the wins. And so in the past, and I still struggle with this, and I suspect I always will at some level, kind of deal with that devil of, I define my future outcome based on my failures, not my wins. And it's 2 different ways of looking at it. And so when I switch from defining my future on my wins, that's a whole different way of showing up than defining my future on my losses or my failures. And talking about like reality not being what we thought it was. Like, we've talked about this before, of like the blueprint of our life. Like we all have this mental picture of this blueprint, and this is what it should look like. And yet the reality is that the house is not getting built that way. Like those stairs are never going to fit where the architect put them. It's never going to happen. It doesn't work. And so being willing to redline those and say, well, we're going to have to move the stairs, or move this wall, or move the opening further into the kitchen and take more floor space. Like something has to change. And when you're unwilling to do that, then you experience pain and suffering, and you're distraught and depression and all of the things that go along with that. But when you accept it and you say, you know what, I'm going to have to turn these stairs, and I'm going to have to put a 90 with a landing and move this wall a little bit to make all this work, and you simply redline that and draw it in, that's the new reality. That's the new blueprint of the reality. And then you can accept that and move on, and you don't live in that environment of, you know what, I'm a victim, my house didn't turn out the way that I wanted.
And that makes me think about goal setting. I know you've done it, and me and Emily have done it, and just goal setting for 26. personally and for the company. And, you know, if those goals don't shape up by the end of 26, you know, depending on the emphasis you put on those goals, like it can be really destructive to you of like, you know, oh, I didn't hit any of these goals. But, you know, that redlining kind of plays into that. It's like, no, like, you know, maybe we didn't hit it, but maybe we just need to adjust, you know, or, you know, where are the wins inside of that? You know, what did we learn about goal setting? Yeah, just because things don't shape up doesn't mean you don't set a course for your life. You know, you've got to start somewhere. You've got to set a north and start charging for it, whether they shape up or not. You know, whether they come to fruition, you've got to have something to aim at.
Yeah, and there's always a left ditch and a right ditch in all of this, right? And so you don't want to show up from the standpoint of, oh, I didn't hit my goal, and I'm just going to make this different to make it easier for myself because I didn't show up at 100%, and so I'm just going to make myself feel good and rewrite this goal. Like that's kind of the left ditch side of it. The right ditch is, you know, I didn't make this goal, and I am a failure. I'm a terrible person. Yeah. No, there's this middle road of like being real and being honest with yourself, of like bringing that together and saying, hey, I showed up at 100% of what I had every day. Some days that was only 40% of my actual capacity, but it was 100% of what I had in that moment.
Yeah.
And tomorrow I'm going to show up at 100% too, and 100% too, and 100% too. And I can look back and say, I gave it my best. And maybe I had a few days where I didn't show up at 100% and I knew it. And I'm going to hold myself accountable to that. But I'm not going to crucify myself because I didn't make it. I'm also not going to give myself a pass because I really know in my heart I didn't show up. And so, you know, I have a saying that I don't know if anybody else has coined it or not, but I have, is perfection can be the goal, but never the standard. So we can strive for the perfection of our goal, like perfecting that outcome is perfect. But if the standard is perfection and nothing less, and I'm preaching to myself here because I'm the number one criminal, but if the standard is perfection, then I'm never going to obtain that. So like if I build a house, a brand new house, the goal is building a perfect outcome of a house. The reality is, if the standard is perfection, the house will never get done because it's never going to be perfect.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a stud with an 1/8-inch bow, or, you know, a splintery board somewhere, or a knot, or maybe a wall is a 16th out of level, right? Like, what's the level of perfection we're going to hold ourselves to? And so the goal is I want to build a perfect outcome, but the standard has to be that, not that I just say it's good enough, but that I say that meets the outcome that I'm looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. So with looking back at 25, you know, we've really accomplished a lot. It was a big year for us. You know, probably the biggest, most notable one is we got under one roof at North Road and brought the team together. Kind of talk about that and just kind of how the year progressed and maybe some other key takeaways that you took from that year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was one of the notable things for 25 was we had a trust and post shop that was at a different location. And at that location, we had our saw in one building and our post and truss in another. We had to carry materials back and forth, both raw and cut, in all kinds of environmental situations, wind, snow, rain, cold, hot. So that we had that going on, and that was all at a different spot. Then we had our office at another spot, and then we had our lumber yard and our metal manufacturing at another property. We had our mechanic shop at another property, and while our mechanic shop is still off site at the moment, we've brought all the production and all the office staff under one roof. And the result of that has just been incredible for the team, the mindsets, the energy, the viewpoints. We don't have anybody feeling like they're the redheaded stepchild and we don't care about them. Everybody's together. It's really created a very different dynamic and environment. And from a financial standpoint, like it streamlined us tremendously. Like, we're no longer needing a truck and a trailer and a CDL driver to carry materials back and forth between all these places and, you know, bound by timelines of our internal resources and all of these things. Like, that move has been tremendous. And I really say it with conviction that we have built a tremendous production facility capable of a lot of output. Just to look at that as a win, even if we didn't bring some other things along with it like we should have, understanding that we did create something great in that facility and we're aware enough to know how to go climb on top the rest of it, or bring the people on board to climb on top the rest of it. And the outcomes of that we can influence, but we can't directly control that. And so kind of comes back to that holding loosely some of that and knowing you did your best, but not giving yourself a pass for less than.
Yeah.
So, and then when you know better, do better. And so just that whole shift of, you know, I remember distinctly, I think it was January 10th of 2025 that we kind of moved in, started operations there except for the truss shop. And it was a real, you know, kind of monumental date. And then late spring, early summer, we got the truss shop and the post shop moved in, and we were actually all under one roof. It was just an incredible moment to kind of know that we brought all that together. And in the way that we did it, a lot of bootstrapping, a lot of elbow grease, a lot of hours spent, and a lot of plans that we had put together, not having designed or lived in a building that big, and saying this is how it needs to be designed, knowing that mistakes in that design could cost us immense amount of money to go fix, or maybe even they weren't, you know, reversible. And to know that, hey, it all worked out really good and it's all flowing the way that we anticipated it. That was a big win for 25.
What are maybe two other things throughout the year that were notable for the year, whether wins or losses?
I think a real notable win was we were really able to put the right people in the right seats as an overwhelming statement. And we made some real strides in equipment. Some things that stand out for me in equipment is our slitter, 2 more forklifts, 2 more trailers, and 2 more trucks. I think that all came on in 2025. And man, just the assuredness that those pieces bring to the table, I would count that as a huge win. There's kind of 2 separate things there, but just right seats, right people in the right seats, some really quality equipment on board, reliable. And then a notable loss would be, you know, hey, we didn't hit our revenue goal for the year. You know, we were 25% under it.
Yeah.
So we really needed to hit that goal, and we didn't. And, you know, so this is this area where I don't want to give myself a pass. I'm not looking to. And I know that I did the best I could every day in the midst of that. And I learned a lot along the way that's going to be applied in 2026.
As we start to close out this episode, the next episode, I'd like to talk about, you know, planning. How do people plan? What's an effective way to goal set and get going for 26? You know, we're already, 2 weeks into 26 and
basically Christmas already.
Yeah. So 50 weeks left, and the year goes fast. We hope that you guys can join us in on next episode as we talk about goals, planning, and goal setting. So just some things that we've learned along the way and maybe can be effective for you in your business and in the season that you're in. So really appreciate your time and appreciate our audience for taking the time to participate with us. And so that's a wrap for this episode. And just remember, it's closer than it seems.